So that it's what Andy was talking about. The government is trying really hard to push IT, push technology, push hardware. If you want to do that, then they're very supportive.
Actually, do you have a question now?
No.
Oh, okay.
What about developer salaries? Taking into account that such high price for real estate.
So it turns out, because I asked this question, and I want to say a fully loaded hourly employee in U.S. dollars in Hong Kong, I'll check my notes. I actually have them with me. I want to say it was like $55 an hour.
Okay, yeah,
that was like average senior developer. Even though real estate's really expensive there, everything else is very affordable. They have like the world's best transportation system, so no one really needs a car.
Car is super expensive. That's why cars are like super luxury.
Yeah.
How about income tax?
That's low.
Yeah, he would eat. Well,
16%
if you have
flat.
specific questions on like salary, I mean, obviously he can answer. He's got now employees in Hong Kong. But
So
it was very
right.
to
It's
me.
very yeah. So this question comes up to me a lot. It's like, how do they live? I mean, so things are expensive. Food is cheap, right? Transportation is reasonable. You don't drive. The salary, so it's in general about half of here, right? So $55, right? So here it's $80, $90, right? So it's about half. So it's a very different dynamic. So people there, young people in particular, not having our kind of buying power. So that also makes me and make us realize how good we have being here. I keep telling us and people around me, like, well, and especially young developers that we're hiring, like, you have a good life here. Because you work 5-6 years, chances are you can buy a house, no problem at all. You buy a house, buy a car, have a couple dogs, right? So your life is no problem. Over there, and it's not just Hong Kong, I think a lot of the Asian country had that problem too, where as a young person you grow up and you may not be able to afford a house, and without a house, without real estate, basically you're stuck in this rental market, and so I mean that's something else, but that's another thing that I observe.
I checked my notes. I stand corrected. It's about $5K a month to employ a young person in Hong Kong. That's about $30 an hour. So
right.
But it is about rough half, right? Because average software developer is going to run a corporation about $10,000 a month, fully loaded, but healthcare. But by the way, healthcare healthcare's free for citizens, right?
There is your universal healthcare in Hong Kong, and also private healthcare. So that will be another topic that we can talk about. What we do here, what we try to do. Granted, Hong Kong is a small society, but they are able to do both. Actually, have the private system running and the public system running concurrently. So if you want to go with the public system, the Obamacare, if you will, there is such, and then there is a private system healthy running, no problem. So, I mean, I always look at it fascinating.
So in terms of I'm sorry.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
You were getting back to when you were talking about hardware.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend that has like the largest radiator shop in Arizona, and he buys containers of, or he was buying containers, like he buys 7-10 containers of radiators from China every couple months in a shop, and he told me that he would send that 25% would be garbage. And that and then he'd call up the manufacturer, and they'd say, "Okay, we'll give you 25% off your next shipment," but they would never actually refund anything. So in short order, he's getting a free container, but even that's going to have 25%. So I guess the point I'm making is that there's in China, because it's really extremely tough to have any kind of quality control. And the guy that you just bought 1,000 tablets from today, you go back a month later and say, "Hey, I need 5,000 now." He's not there anymore.
Well, fair. That is so. With tablets, a variable that we were looking at was battery life, right? And of course, they would all lie to you and say, "Oh yeah, this tablet, could run for 8 hours," and we'd laugh, like, "Yeah, right." But here's the difference, right? Is I agree with you that there might be some quality issues, but he's one of 1,000 factories, so I wouldn't necessarily buy 1,000 at first. I'd buy like 4 or 5 and test them for a few days or months or whatever it is. If I liked them, I'd do an order. But if I didn't like him, or if he sent me a bunch of junk, I have 9,999 other choices to make if I so choose. So there is a perceived quality issue in what maybe Chinese factories are pushing out, but it's not like there's just one factory and you're stuck with it. You have choice, and I think the quality issue will start to, or quality of these things will come up as more and more buyers demand it. I mean, obviously the Walmarts and the Targets of the world have zeroed in on the factories that can actually build something, right? The Samsung devices that you all have, or the Google, the iPhones, they're coming out of China, right? I mean, so they can build stuff of high quality. It's incumbent on you to find it.
I mean, what are the barriers for someone in the U.S. to take advantage of these technology incubators in Hong Kong?
I don't think there's any.
Yeah, there's very little.
You just go there. I mean, they're government entities, so they care about jobs, like ours, right?
Except
so,
they're willing to put money behind it.
Right. So they're saying
There's
if
going
you
to be some conditions, right?
No,
they're just not going to be giving away $8 million for
well, no, I mean
it's
obviously
a grant. It's matched. So it isn't that they'll just stroke you a check for $8 million and you can go buy your high rise and your Ferrari. You have to actually show them that you've spent the money.
Okay.
So, like, using Z as an example, if he does get this grant, I'll let him talk, but let's say he hires, 2 employees and builds out an office and does some other stuff, and he goes back to these government agencies and says, at the end of 2013, I spent, $25,000, and then they'll give him a check for $25,000.
So do you do some sort of like a contract agreement or anything is in writing with the government?
Oh yeah, well you have to apply for it and they have to actually agree to it. So there are U.S. companies that actually haven't been able to get this grant because there's lots of interesting clause, like they talked about IBM couldn't qualify because you have to meet certain stipulations of the government.
It's
you have
like
to set up R&D.
60% R&D or some percentage needs to be R&D in technologies that they care about.
And you can see U.S. companies wanting to set up shop in Hong Kong to break into China. They couldn't care less about the R&D. They want a sales force, right? And so that's what Hong Kong and these governments are trying to. No, I don't want all your sales, your slimy sales guys hanging out in Hong Kong. I want you to hire, my citizens to build your stuff.
Right, and that's also why I'm not getting the grant, but I'm getting the office space for cheap.
Yeah.
Well, 3 years ago, before Android hit the market and it was real big, I had the luck of trying to deal with manufacturers over there with a $40 PC idea. So I found out that you have, I call them assemblers, and then you have true manufacturers, and then you have the people who build the parts. So like Andrew said, I mean, you may deal with someone today, but they may not be there tomorrow because they may be an assembler. So, in this world, we have something called ODM and OEM. So you have ODMs who actually design these products, and then the OEMs are the ones who pick which ones they want. They put their logo on it. They say, I want this processor, I want this amount of memory. So you have to basically understand some of those concepts before you deal with some of these so-called manufacturers over there. So a good place to start is, as you all know, Alibaba. And you can use Alibaba Express to test out some of those products.
So if you've ever been to Alibaba, you're talking about it's like a big website where you can source. That conference that we went to was like a real life Alibaba. Like you walked up to a vendor who had all their wares and you talked to them. They knew English and they had catalogs. They have a pile of catalogs. I mean, it was the first vendor we walked up to. I said $65. They actually the price was very exact. It was $64.60.
I mean, we keep asking the question: how do these people keep in business? I mean, there's aisles of speakers and tablets.
Watches,
how are they in business? I mean, I don't understand. So, but obviously they're there. So, but that goes back to my original. Don't assume anything. I mean, you go in. Don't assume that you order 100 will show up perfectly. Don't assume you can return them. Don't assume you pay and they will come. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Right. Yeah, go ahead.
One question, somebody mentioned that what if you buy something a year and in a year you want to buy from them again, the factory may not be there. What's the actual failure rate of local business?
I have no idea.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, again, it's incumbent on you. You know, a lot of the questions we were asking are, who are your current customers? You know, and a lot of them couldn't say. So then you were like, okay, well, so they just started yesterday type thing. They, you know, so that's a reality. But it's the same reality in the U.S., right? You hire a software development firm to build your software, and 2 days later they go out of business. I mean, you have that, right? So you look at references and you're trying to figure that out. But that's a good stat. I would question. I don't think you'll ever get a precise number from the Chinese government, though. I think you'd have to talk
They
to
say everybody's